Hi everyone. Today I am making a birthday card and it's for a special friend and it's late. So I'm going to show you how I made this card and then get it out in the mail. It's using the Timeless Tropical stamp set, which is a little bit older. It's a couple years old and I really like it. It's got some really beautiful images in here and it has some really fun dies, and I really like the sentiments. It's got a nice thank you. I always look for sentiments that have a variety, and there's a hello, which is nice to send to someone you haven't seen in a while. Thank you, rest and relax, you deserve it. That's great for a retirement, or just someone who's been ill for a while and you just want to say, hey, I'm thinking about you, just take a rest. Or happy birthday, always good. And something for a friend. So this is just a really all-around good stamp set, and it's good for scrapbooking because you've got some tropical things here, and nice for I did a Hawaii trip not too long ago. Well, actually, I think it was long ago, maybe 5 years. Time flies. Anyway, so this is really a fun stamp set and I really like it, and the dies really make it extra special because it's got something to cut out your images. All of the images have their own die, but then there's always those add-ons, and the add-ons here are really fun. There's an aloha, which I did use on the scrapbook page. There are these nice little trio of flowers that I've used on many things actually, because they're really cute flowers and you can cut 3 out in one. They're connected, but they cut separate flowers, and they're a nice size. I've used these flowers quite often. And then you've got a variety of extra leaves, which are nice to have. And then this really fun pineapple. And I really like it. It's got a lot of texture to it. I like that it's 2 pieces, so I can do a yellow pineapple and some green leaves, or you can do some funky colors. So it's just a really fun die. And these individual little spikes, actually you can pop them up on your pineapple, so that's really fun too. And the leaves are the same. Some of them cut out fully in the middle here, so you can have some dimension to your pineapple, which is really fun. And I actually made something with it recently, so I want to show you that real quick. Here's what I mean about the spiky leaves. Perfect for a pineapple. Anyway, I'm going to do that in a separate video, but right now I want to focus on this card. There's a few things I did here that I wanted to specifically point out, and one is the background. I love to do this background technique where you just splatter some water on top of some ink and you've got some instant white splatter, which is really fun. I'm also doing watercolor with the inks onto the flower, but I'm also embossing in the ink color. So in the past, Stampin' Up! Sold embossing powders in colors. So you could get, I remember I had a wild wasabi, so it must have been when wild wasabi was an in color a long time ago, and there was a real red and stuff like that. So you had colors in your powder, and they stopped doing that a long time ago. You have just your basic metallics and you have your basics like black and white and clear, but sometimes you know, you want to have that embossed look. It's such a rich look. It's nice. It's got a shine to it. It's raised. Just looks really elegant. But we don't have the colors anymore, and maybe you don't want white and you want to have a soft like color tone on tone thing. So you can do that still with ink and Versamark combined, and you can get an embossed colored image. And so I want to show you how to do that. So we're going to do some watercoloring with embossing. We're going to do this background and put this cute little card together. I also did a little ribbon technique here. So I've got a lot of little things I want to show you on this card. Okay, first we're going to start with the stamping of the background. So I'm going to use, and you can do the same background on white cardstock, which is actually what I did on this one. But I'm going to do this one on shimmery white because I wasn't thinking, and that's what I cut. So I'm using some new in colors that I just keep reaching over and over again. Sometimes they don't hit me as much as other times. The past few years of in colors have really been great, so I really like this one. This one is polished pink. It's not quite as deep as Melon Mambo. It doesn't have as many like a blue overtone. It's really a pretty color. And then we've got this pale papaya. Really nice. And I'm using blending brushes. You can achieve this with a sponge too. I just really am into these blending brushes because they're kind of new. But what you're going to do is you're going to get some ink on your sponge or your blending brush. You want to start off your page. You don't want to put it directly right on there first, because you're going to get a harsh dot. And no matter how many times you blend over and over again, it's never really going to go away, because you're just adding more tone on top of it, so the dark spot's just going to get even darker. So start off the cardstock piece just a little bit, and then you're going to do this several times. Now, I've just remembered something I wanted to try. I wanted to try not using cardstock, because see how much ink I'm losing on my cardstock here? I thought maybe if I go with a silicone mat that might be nice. I might get some deeper edges here. Now you can go as dark or as light as you want. This is a nice way to add just a smooth, soft background behind an image too. Just if you want to do it in the middle, maybe just pounce off a little bit to get some of that deeper. I just don't want you to get that harsh boom of one color in one spot, and then it's going to be hard to blend it out. So we're just going and going and going here. Okay, and now I'm going to move over to the pale papaya. I actually think I might need to re-ink my pale papaya. I haven't done that yet since I bought it, and I use it quite a bit. That might have been a little much. Tapping it in is going to help it kind of disperse in the pad too, so it's a good time to use the re-inker when you're using your blending brushes, because then it helps disperse the re-inked inker. This is actually looking like a t-shirt I own. This is like my favorite tie-dye t-shirt that I have. It's like exactly this. It's so funny with the white. I'm going to get rid of that white in just a second. I should have wore it for today, although you can't see me anyway. So you're going to keep going until you've got it as deep as you like. And I'm always tempted to fast forward the video, and I'm not going to do that this time because I wanted you to see how long it takes to do that. So that's that. All right, now we're going to do my favorite part, and that is adding a little bit of splatter. So you're just going to grab some water, really, and let's see if I have an aqua painter around here. I meant to have one ready. So you're just going to grab some water. I like to have my Stampin' Scrub next to me when I use this. Okay, so you're going to squeeze the barrel just to get some water down here. If you don't have one of these, you can use a regular paintbrush. You're going to get some water onto the brush, and then I use the cap, and I flick that water onto the cardstock that you just blended beautifully. And what's going to happen is when the water hits that ink, it's going to disperse that ink, and you're going to get these really fun splatters. Now you can go crazy. You can do a ton of this, or a lot. If you go farther away, you get little droplets. If you want some really big droplets, really get your brush damp and maybe hit it off your finger. You might get some bigger splatters. Okay, so you've got, or if you don't want to hit your finger, you can use a pencil or something. So I've got my splatters, and more are going to show up as the minutes go by. Some of those smaller ones are going to start to show up. And you can decide if this is enough or if you need some more and set that aside. Oh, I still need this. All right, now we're going to stamp our flower. So I'm going to, again, use some shimmery white cardstock. The reason why I love to watercolor on shimmery white cardstock is because it has an automatic shimmer in it already, which doesn't show up super great on the film, the video, but it's there in person. You can see it. It's got just, it's so slight. It's just such a slight amount of shimmer, but it still shows up even after you've inked and done all that. So there's like a little bit of shimmer still on this, even though I've added all that ink. So it's really fun and pretty, and so I like that. And then I'm going to stamp my biggest flower and my leaves on that. Now I'm going to do two things. I'm going to use my ink and my Versamark. Versamark is what you need for embossing, and the ink is for the color. So I'm going to use the Stampin' Scrub real quick to clean this off. I can't find my spray. I think I've left it at Stamp Camp. I rent a space for Stamp Camp, and I started doing them in person again. And so I left some stuff there for next week. And I left my spray. So I'll use my chamois. Okay. So when you're using both these together, you want to do the Versamark first, and that's because you don't want to transfer ink into your Versamark pad, because then it'll transfer onto things you want clear, and that would be bad. So you're going to want to ink up your stamp in the Versamark first. Okay, and then you're going to ink it into your ink pad. So are you getting some Versamark into your ink pad? Yeah, maybe a tiny bit. Maybe. I've done this for years and it hasn't had any adverse effects. So then you're going to stamp onto your paper, and while it's still got some wetness to it, you're going to emboss with clear embossing powder. So it's going to look like you embossed in pink, but you didn't. Let me grab a piece of paper that I just printed, so I'm going to ruin it. Here we go. We're going to go ahead and get that full of your clear embossing powder. All right, and then we're going to heat it up. You'll see that image, it right now has a layer of clear embossing powder on it, so it looks cloudy, but when I heat it up, it's going to really shine bright. Okay, there is my beautifully embossed, polished pink embossed hyacinth. Is it hyacinth? What is this? Hibiscus? I'm not sure what that is. If you know what flower this is, please let me know in the comments below. So there's a little stamen in there, which I lost last time. So I want to paint that first so I don't lose it this time. And I'm going to grab my bumblebee. Still working with a lot of in colors. Now I like to paint right out of my lids, and I do it all the time. If you don't, you can use a re-inker and add a little, make yourself a little watercolor palette with on a tray or something, or you can get an ink block filled with some ink and work from there. I'm just going to work right out of my lid, and I just need the tiniest bit of bumblebee for this little area there, which I forgot about in my sample card. Okay, I've got that, and then I'm gonna grab this pale papaya again, And I'm going to paint right out of the lid again. So I love having a Stampin' Scrub next to me when I use my aqua painters, because you squeeze the barrel to rinse off the last color. You know, the water will come and rinse it off for you, and then you can wipe it on the Stampin' Scrub and you're good to go. So I love having the Stampin' Scrub for paint, and I actually use it when I use my regular watercolors too. So it's kind of a nice tool. Alright, so then we're going to just go in the center area with that pale papaya, trying to avoid the little bumblebee area that I just did. And then the embossed area doesn't smear or smudge or anything because it's got that clear embossing on top. So you can just kind of go like this and you're not going to mess up that polished pink detail. That's kind of the problem sometimes when you stamp and watercolor, the no line watercoloring technique. You can lose some detail sometimes if you're not real careful when you're painting. So I love this way to emboss first, and then you don't lose any of that detail. And it's got a nice shine. Alright, let's finish it off in polished pink. Alright, now you can decide how much you want to blend this pale papaya into your polished pink. Okay. I think I want that pink to shine even more. Just kind of adding a little deeper color towards the top, the tips of the flowers. Okay. Oh, I need to do my leaves. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing with the leaves. I'm going to do that on fast forward so that you don't have to watch me super slow. I don't want the video to be too long. Okay, so remember, we're going to hit the Versamark first. And then we're going to pick up some ink. And then we're going to stamp. Now you do have to clean, I need several of these. I need to clean in between each time because I want to make sure that I don't get that green into my Versamark pad. Okay, and I will paint them on fast forward. I'm painting them in soft succulent instead of evergreen. I used evening evergreen when I was stamping, but I'm going to paint in soft succulent just to kind of give it a lighter tone so you really see the vein detail. Alright, now I'm going to cut these out. While I'm at it, I'm going to cut out a couple of flowers and a few of these leaves. I'm going to do the leaves in the same paper, but the flowers I'm going to do in a little scrap of pale papaya. Maybe I'll even do some in polished pink. Okay, I've got all my pieces, and I had a slight problem when I cut it out. I wasn't really paying attention. My room is kind of a mess since I did a stamp camp, or not a stamp camp, a card buffet a few weeks ago, and I haven't been doing in-person events in over a year, and I made a huge mess preparing. And I just haven't cleaned it yet because I've been doing some work for my husband because his one of his employees out of town. Anyway, I've been trying to do some computer stuff, so I haven't had a lot of time in my craft room. So even though it's a mess, I wanted to get in here and play, and I needed a birthday card. Anyway, it's a mess. So I'm got my big shot is in like this dark corner, and I wasn't paying attention. And look what I did when I cut out my flower. It's off center. So I was going to hide that fact from you by making another one and not telling you. However, I think what I'm going to try and do is something that I would do maybe at home, and I think that it's kind of worthwhile showing you. Sometimes we make mistakes, and rather than scrapping the whole flower, because I painted it nicely, I am just going to grab my little scissors, because this side doesn't have a lot of white, and I'm just going to trim it. And that is all I'm going to do. You could even run it through with a Big Shot again, or not the Big Shot, now it's the Stamp Cut and Emboss machine. You can run it through the machine again and move it, and then it'll cut out that little white end, but I don't mind if it's such a tiny little area and not intricate. Just going through and cutting off that edge. So that is how you salvage a little boo-boo here. There. Okay, so now I've got my card base is going to be pale papaya. I have my background that we splattered, and you can decide, do you want the pink up, do you want the pink down, how do you want that to go? I'm going to do it just like that. Isn't that a pretty background? You can use it any color. It also looks really nice as a galaxy, like a sky. It's going to be stars. Okay, I'm going to put that down. Okay, and now I'm going to put my greeting on a piece of scrap here. Let me find. I always save my little ends in the bag of cardstock so that I can grab them and use them. I think that might be a good size. It is about 1 inch, and I'm going to use that for my sentiments. That's how I keep my scraps. I keep them in with the paper. If you put them in like a big pile, I find, at least for me, the pile is too much to look through. Alright, so now I'm going to stamp my greeting, and I'm going to do the birthday again. I always need birthdays. Hopefully my head won't get too much under the camera. Sorry, lately I really feel like I need to be on top of it when I stamp. Let's see how I did. Not bad. Okay, I'm using basic gray. I have been using basic gray a lot lately for my sentiments instead of black, just, I don't know, shaking it up a bit. And I'm going to stick that down. You're not going to see this end, so you can either trim it off or leave it, up to you. I might just trim it off just to have less things going on underneath. Alright, and I'm going to stick that up on dimensionals, which I enjoy doing, but I'm only going to put dimensionals on the end here because I've got some bulk going with the ribbon that I'm going to show you in a minute, and I like that it's going to kind of flex down a little bit past the words. Okay, here's how I'm going to do the ribbon. Now, some ribbons you can color, and that's a really fun thing. And I was watching, demonstrators we have like a group Facebook page, and some different people, we always share our ideas, and it's always nice. And somebody recently, I think it was Patty Bennett, shared that she paints, or she uses, you know, you don't have to look for just your white ribbons to color, which, I mean, they're the easiest because they're white, so it's easy to put color on them. But some of our very pale ribbon, like this pale papaya, can also be colored. Now, pale papaya is in my card, so I could just leave it as is. And this ribbon also comes in polished pink, so if I wanted to go, either one would be perfect. However, even more perfect is a ribbon that was both colors, right? So I grabbed my polished pink blends, Stampin' Blends, which is an alcohol marker, which means it's going to dry on there. Water-based, you'd have to worry about, you know, smearing and smudging, but this nice polished pink marker, you can do this with water-based markers too. You don't have to use your blends. Just make sure you dry it thoroughly, maybe heat set it. So I'm going to grab my blends. Now you can use the brush end or the nib, but I'm going to use the brush end, and I'm only going to color one part of the ribbon. Now I need to see how much I need for a bow, so I'm going to need about there. So let me cut it, and I'm going to go ahead and only do one side. So I've got both polished pink and pale papaya, and I'm using the lighter of the blends. You can decide which one you want. I think that the lighter one is dark enough for this particular. And I like it because then you still have this shimmery ribbon, and you have so many options to coloring. Okay, now depending upon the ribbon you're choosing, you may or may not have to do the back side. Now this one, I noticed when I turned it over that the ink went right through. So I've got the top and bottom both inked up, so you don't have to flip it. Some ribbons may not do that as well. So let's make a bow. There I go, and then I'm going to trim just a little bit off this end. Okay, there's my bow. And I'm going to stick that right here. Now, so you can have it where the bow is going both sides down. You can play around with these tails. I actually want the tails to both go down. So I'm going to pull them this way. All right, and I might have to pull it a little more. And then I'm going to stick my glue dot right behind there. Okay, I think this tail is longer than that one, so I'm going to give it a little trim. There we go. Okay, and then I'm going to grab that flower that I just did. Is this it? And I'm going to stick it on top. So I like the bow. Let me turn it a little bit more. I want it to be kind of under one of the petals, like so. So I'm going to do this. Okay, so I'm going to grab my dimensionals. And I want this to be sticking on top, and I don't want weird bumpiness with like the bow area, so I'm actually doubling up the dimensionals on the flower, just because I want to make sure that it doesn't do some kind of weird lumpy thing, and I want to kind of have it there. So I'm going to double them up so they're twice as high as normal. I don't often do that, but just for this one, because I want to go over that bow, and sometimes it works where you don't have to double it up. But this one, oh, and I smeared it. Okay, I'm going to see if I can erase that in a little bit, but Luckily I made 2 of these so I can send the one that I didn't smear. Okay. And I'm just tucking it where I think it needs it. Alright, there we go. Our flower is stuck down. And now I want to add some of these little leaves I made. And those I'm only going to use 1 dimensional behind. And I'm just going to kind of find places that I want them to be. There we go. And then when I was cutting things out, you might have seen I cut out some of these little white guys here. I used the same shimmery white. I'm going to just find areas to put those down just to add more fullness and just some more fun. All right, and then I cut out these little flowers. Now, on the pale papaya ones, I want to show you something else that I did real quick. I grabbed a Q-tip, cotton swab, and I just wanted to add a little bit of color to the centers, but if I used a sponge, it was just too big, my sponge dauber. So I'm just going to take a cotton swab. Oops, that one's too dark. Okay. Did I do that one? Yes. And you can add some of those down if you want to as well. You can kind of pop those around. Maybe a little baby one over here. Okay, and then for the inside, I've got I cut out some extra of these little flowers, and I thought we could just stick some down on the inside just for some fun. I think I'll leave it there. Okay, I hope that you will give the idea of embossing with the ink and Versamark together a try. I think it's really fun, and it adds that pink embossing, and it's really pretty. And let me find the original card that I didn't smear. Here we go. And I love this splatter background, so give that a try too. It's so easy. Just drop some water on some sponged ink and you are good to go. And I also hope that you will take a look at your ribbon collection and see if you've got other ribbons that you can color. They're so pretty when you can make them custom like this one. Thanks so much for watching. Bye!